I'm Sarah and welcome. If you're new to the channel, which you probably are, I am a small business owner. I have my own online thrift store called Hey Red Shop. I am a blogger. I write on a movie blog called Eating Film and a lifestyle blog called Hey Red Journal. And I recently launched a Patreon account. That is a huge deal. So my Patreon is fully up. I have 2 tiers. One is for my movie loving patrons and the other is for my vintage loving patrons, because those 2 subjects, vintage design and clothing, are something I'm really passionate about, and movies are something I'm very passionate about. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that is available if you guys, are interested in supporting what I do. Now today I wanted to talk about The Mummy. The Mummy with Sofia Boutella, I think is how you pronounce it, and Tom Cruise. I have seen all of the Mummy movies, including the black and white version when I was a kid. That was the last time I saw that one, but I still remember it well. Frankenstein 2. A tomb is found where crusaders were buried. In Iraq is a burial chamber that is clearly Egyptian. So first thing I want to say is the Mummy movies from the early 2000s had a lot of great detail. There were multiple storylines moving from the past and the present. That's the biggest thing, is that you're trying to connect the past and the present in movies like this. I'm gonna skip past all of the cultural appropriation stuff. That is not my area. So my area is just giving you guys my commentary on the movie, which I would give a 3 out of 5 stars. There are some very good details and very well done scenes, but then it just sort of loses its way and loses track of what is even the point of this story. We're working with details, modern day details, and we're combining the past with the present. My first issue started with this lack of connection. Everything just seemed to happen sort of by accident. It wasn't done purposefully. In the first movies, there's a treasure map. Essentially, it's like a very action adventure where there's a map that leads to a hidden city because of X, Y, and Z. And in this version, some greedy members of the military blew up or had a section of the desert blown up and revealed this tomb. There are spoilers in this review or whatever you want to call it, but it's a few years old now. The fact that Ahmanet, who was an Egyptian princess who was erased from the history books because of her role in eliminating the whole line, why would this, what would it hurt for this information to be public knowledge? So at the beginning of the movie, Russell Crowe's character comes in. They take over the dig site. We don't know who they are. I see they have weapons. I see they're wearing uniforms. They don't look like archaeologists at all. They look like private security forces. There's no need for all that at this point. It's an archaeological site. It has great historical significance, but there's no need to be guarding it with weapons of any kind. It was just overkill, especially at the beginning of the movie where we don't know what's going on. So all of it is like, what is this? Who are they? You never find out. You never know. I'm already bored. I'm like, yeah, they're doing it again. British colonialism. They're basically rewriting history. The next thing you see, 2 members of the American military force trying to find treasure in Iraq during a time where it's still like a war-torn area. They decide that what they're gonna do is steal things and have the trail of their theft be covered up by the fact that it is an unstabilized area. I was like, okay, sure. Okay, fine. There are some comedic elements that start coming in. They end up blowing up part of the desert to reveal an Egyptian statue. And at the same time, when the cavalry comes in and they're confronted and they're like, what happened after the area was bombed? They were like, okay, so what happened? Why did y'all call in an airstrike? The leader pieced together the fact that they were thieves and stealing stuff. And at the same time, which we don't know how she found him, there's a woman who he stole the treasure map from. Then we get introduced to the female archaeologist, I assume. I mean, she says she's a doctor, so we assume she has a doctorate, is leading the excavation of this area. I do not care. When we're first introduced to Ahmanet's character, it is through the lens of this British historian. In the other Mummy movies, you're just shown the scene that led to where we are now. And it literally shows the passing of time. Here, it's just like we're plopping down into his visualization of her and what she must have been like as a person. We don't hear her speak. We don't hear nobody speak in these flashbacks to the past. So we don't actually know anything about personality. We see the posing of these characters, these very powerful characters. Her father being the pharaoh, she being the princess, servants. We can see the hierarchy, but as far as personality, all we know is what he's saying about her, and it's not like he's reading her diary or he's reading something that shares events from her life and recounting it to us. It's just him narrating this story right before she finds out that she is no longer going to be the heir to the throne, that her father has lain with somebody, not the queen, and had a male heir, which apparently would bump her out of position. And then there's a jump to me in the story of her character from realizing this to her deciding to summon Set, the god of death, for revenge. I feel like that jump was so high and wide. To me, it said that she was like very impulsive, didn't seem to think things all the way through when she made decisions, because there are different ways that she could have gone about securing her position than just jumping to that. They refer to Set as a demon and a devil as Satan. We're skating past the fact that Egyptian gods precede all of those ideas. The audience doesn't even have a good idea of who Set is and why he's significant, other than he's the god of death. So he must be a villain, right? He must be the bad guy. They go down into the hole. She is released from her prison. His friend getting bit by the spiders and him having an extreme reaction to that, firing his weapon blindly in a cave. In a lot of movies, there's always the sidekick, the helper slash best friend. Like, you could lift his character right out of there. I don't get it. So they get the coffin onto the plane. This 0G scene that they shot for that sequence was the best thing about this whole movie. The plane is going down, people are lifting off, and you can see things just like moving around and them like struggling. That was very good. That was very well done. So you don't really get a sense of who she is as a person until you're over halfway through the movie and she's temporarily captured. And that's when she starts to have interactions with other people, and you can see a bit of her personality come through. And I do think it was a good idea to choose Sofia because of her dance background, especially with some of the scenes that they had her doing. Physically, she was able to move through the beginning stage where she's very weak and can't seem to support her body, to when she's like fully restored. The way she carried herself was very regal, and she's in nobody's rush to do anything outside of her own pace. But having her wear like a bandage bikini, it was like a peekaboo situation where it like showed some abs, some legs, some chest. Not very regal, not very queen-like. Frankly, it made her look raggedy. We're trying to be super realistic and have her wear these decaying cloth. She'd have busted out of that when she fully restored. Once she fully restored and was no longer like shrunken, it would have just, And it kind of reminded me of like the black and white version where the mummy wears all of that. Jenny's interference was just, again, it was totally unnecessary, and we didn't need her. We really didn't need her. Like, her and the sidekick guy, neither of them could have been in the film, and they could have made small tweaks to it that would have filled in the blanks. She's captured temporarily, escapes, and that's between the time where she's captured and escapes, we find out who the leader of this group is. I'm not gonna say leader, but he's running the show, and it's Dr. Jekyll. He is the leader of, I'm gonna say, this section of a group whose job it is to find, identify, and contain evil. That's what he says. Identify and contain or destroy evil. I was like, you mean like in the Hellboy movies, the Paranormal Society, that works with a government that exists but doesn't exist, and that's their job, to identify creatures and determine, whether or not they are harmful or just living their lives, confront the ones that are harmful. Why do y'all do the mummy like this? It's already like it would be a difficult undertaking if it was really done well. Like them first movie, they had planes and costumes, and they were on camels, and they were on a cruise ship for one part of the movie. Like, they were traveling through the desert, and it took days of travel, and they're different modes of travel. Then we find out that Mr. Hyde is still there. Yes, he is. We kind of skip over the fact that Mr. Hyde was a murderer. Mr. Hyde killed people. He is a pure evil person. We skip over that. They don't mention that at all. I guess they assume that if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't, and it's relevant to the story. It wasn't irrelevant to me because I was immediately like, how? She gets out. It's basically like they kind of ran around in the circle for the last third of the movie, which is where she escapes. They're trying to run away because they don't have a contingency plan for, oh my god, what happens if she escapes? And she escapes into London, causes all this damage, the sand wall, face again. Nice callback. The double-decker bus, you see. I'm like, that's a cute callback from the second movie. They're trying to run away and then decide to go back because they think that if they destroy one element that was missing from the ritual, if they just destroy the stone, then she can't complete her part of the transaction, and I don't know, everything will go back to normal. Come on, y'all have like millions of dollars and this is what you came in with the story. They try to go back to find the stone. She's already there because of course she is. Apparently their secret fortress was like 2 blocks away from the Crusaders' tomb that they found. Jenny bites it because of course she does. He is confronted with her alone. So this is the first time that they're together alone. She has the dagger at this point. And instead of just stabbing him in the chest with it when he runs at her, she's trying to like convince him. So he gets the dagger away from her, starts to destroy the jewel. She reminds him that if he gives in, he'll have control over life and death. He feels guilty because Jenny died, and stabs himself, and then decides to take Ahmanet's life and bring Jenny back to life. Jenny's ghost or spirit or whatever is in a sandy place. We don't know what Jenny believed, like what her faith was before she died. I mean, she was in a sandy place and apparently he could reach into that place and pull her back. I guess it doesn't matter, but I was also confused. It would have been better if we didn't know where Jenny was. If it was just her being dead and then her coming back to life and we didn't know where she was or what she was experiencing at that time. I think trying to show us where she was just like, why is Jenny in a sandy place? So she comes back to life. Tom Cruise's character is him slash the god Set. Ahmanet is back to being a mummy and inanimate, not dead because we don't know. And then he disappears and she is just shaken by the experience. Dr. Jekyll take Ahmanet and seal her in a tomb with Mercury. And then they start talking about the future and how he used his power to save her and he could be a great ally in the war against evil. And some of the action sequences were very good. I was very confused as to, are we doing action adventure slash horror thing where we have some horror stuff over here, there's some comedy in there. We need a re-edit. We need a re-edit. But why were there rats? Like, it would make more sense if there were scarabs that had, I don't know, followed them from the desert or something. Rats, that refers to like biblical, you know, like rats and flies and disease. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? So I was a bit confused. A lot of stuff didn't make sense to me or was unnecessary. It's entertaining. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little movie review. I'll have more on the way, and if you guys are interested in my store or Patreon or my blog, links will be in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time.